Former President George W. Bush. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, we can't get fooled again. This is on me that I went to see this movie. I should have known better. I should have known it's a Stephen King film. It's probably going to be disappointing. But I always get suckered in because one of my all-time favorite movies is The Green Mile. I have to do a reaction review of that at some point. But that's one of my favorite movies. And I really like The Shining too. I don't know if I'd say it's one of my favorite movies, but it's a really good movie. So I always go to Stephen King movies thinking, maybe this time they'll get it right. Maybe this time they'll actually make a good film. And I think the reality of it is Stephen King movies are like Stephen King books. Stephen King just brushes out as many things as he possibly can. And sometimes maybe some of it works a bit. Like, I don't know if any of you remember this joke in Family Guy, but it was Stephen King talking to his literary agent. And the guy goes, "So Stephen King, for your 589th novel, what do you have in mind?" And Stephen King's just looking around and he grabs a lamp off of the desk. He's like, "There's this couple and they get attacked by a lamp monster." And that's literally like what he's been reduced to. Honestly, Stephen King is a hack. He's just a hack who occasionally, I guess, makes something decent. Something I would like to see is a Long Walk movie. That's really the only adaptation. I've never been able to get through one of his books. I tried reading The Stand, and it was so long, boring, and just unreadable. I didn't even get to, like, the main story. I just got stuck in the prologue. I think I was like 4 or 5 hours into reading the book, and I just got stuck at the prologue. I was like, I can't do it. I just can't do it. And that was during a time period where I read like 4 Game of Thrones books in a year. That was fine. I could do that, and I read like 9 Anita Blake books in like 6 months. But I couldn't read a single Stephen King book. It was that bad. So, why am I saying all this? So, there's been a lot of bad Stephen King movies lately. The Carrie remake was bad. I mean, it was bad for a lot of reasons. Carrie's supposed to be like an unattractive girl, I think. I haven't seen the original, but from my understanding. So they got Chloe Grace Moretz, who's exceptionally beautiful to play her. So it's like, oh, she's the ugly underdog, except she's not. Which is something they do in a lot of movies. But I just remember it being shitty in general. And then we also had It. And It was truly horrendous. It's one of the very, very few movies in my lifetime that I almost walked out of. It was very, very, it was like that close. I don't think, I try to think, like, I just was so bored. It was just long and lame and uninteresting, and it wasn't scary. It was just bad. It was bad in a very bland way. I'm trying to think, I think the only movie experiences I've had that are worse than that was watching Kick-Ass 2. Kick-Ass 2 is the worst movie watching experience I've ever had. And then maybe Kingsman is like second. But that was maybe third. That was the only time, I think, other than when I saw Transformers 2. Because Transformers 2 was so bad, I walked out of it. And I just went and hung out at the bar. Because that was back when I used to work at a movie theater, so I just went out and talked to people, and I came back in, and I regretted going back in. So, why am I, like, rambling on about this? Because this movie was bad. Like, really bad. It's bland, it's uninteresting, it goes nowhere. So, there's this couple and their kids, and they move into some, like, random town in Maine. Which I guess is just like every Stephen King thing. Which I'm led to believe, because I think that's literally just all that Stephen King writes. Maybe that's the reason why The Green Mile wasn't that bad, because it wasn't like about some random small town in Maine. I don't know, the book it's based on probably sucks, because everything he touches turns to crap. But yeah, so the couple move into this like random house in Maine, and the father is a surgeon, and he wants to get out of the big city because he's tired of working ER and trauma. So one day he's working at the ER, and a patient comes in and dies, and the guy, like, he starts seeing in his dreams, and he's like, the barrier must remain intact. And it's like, there's no explanation for this, of course. But so his daughter has a cat named Church, and her cat gets hit by a truck, and they're like, the mother's like, oh, he's in kitty heaven, and the dad's like, no, I'm a flat earth atheist for some reason. He's dead, and there's no afterlife. And then there's like, the mother can't deal with death because her sister was this like twisted abomination who she had to feed, except she didn't feed her sister. She ended up using a dumbwaiter, but her sister somehow fell down the dumbwaiter and died. So she can't handle death, and she keeps having unexplained visions of her sister. So yeah, so his daughter's cat dies, and then I just saw the movie. I can't even remember his name. The guy who played the old man from Planet of the Apes, the first one. What is it? Rise of the Apes? Yeah, Rise of the Apes. From Rise of the Apes. Judd, that's his name. So Judd meets her, and he's like, oh, there's this pet cemetery, and then there's these random like kids, which is never explained, to like have processions to the pet cemetery where they bury the pets. So they go to the pet cemetery to bury them, and this is never explained or referenced again. And he's like, oh, this little girl's the best, and then her cat gets hit by a car, and then he's like, okay guys, there's this otherworldly, it's like the untended graves. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. So they go to the untended graves, which is like behind the pet cemetery, and apparently like there's a Wendigo there that we never see and is never mentioned again, except in passing. And they bury the cat, and then the cat comes back to life, and the cat comes back as this creepy zombie. And Judd's like, I'm sorry, man, I shouldn't have told you to use necromancy to revive your daughter's cat. And I actually thought he was a villain, and I thought he was like working for the Wendigo, and he like sacrificed people to it, because his character motivation made no goddamn sense. Like, it's so lame. I made a deal with Satan to bring back a dead cat. Like, what's that about? So the cat came back the very next day. The cat came back. I thought it was a goner. The cat came back. It just couldn't stay away. So while his daughter is trying to find the cat, yeah, so sorry, the zombie cat comes back, and he's just completely vicious, and he starts attacking her, etc. So he tries to drive the cat away because he's too much of a pussy to kill it, even though it's a threat to his family. So yeah, so he does that, and then like the cat comes back, and his daughter runs out to greet it, and she gets hit by a truck. So he of course goes, this worked out so well the last time, I'm gonna take her, I'm gonna bury her in the untended graves, and there's a bonfire there, and the firekeeper is gonna resurrect her. And so she gets resurrected, but she comes back wrong. She comes back not good. And I'm like, what does the pet cemetery have to do with any of this? What was with the weird kids at the beginning? Is this ever going to be explained? Nope, never referenced again. So So she comes back, and then the mother comes back because she had left, and then the girl kills the mother and kills the father and resurrects them as zombies, and then Gage, who's like their little boy, is locked in the car because they left him there, so it's implied that they kill him and they also rise him as a zombie. And I just like, and that's the end of the movie. There's no ending. It just stops. Like, I get, like, maybe it's scary to have a movie where good doesn't triumph over evil, but it's just lame. Like, there's no conclusion, there's no theme, there's no plot. Like, it's supposed to be about a man dealing with grief, but we don't see any of that. We don't see any character struggle. We don't see the dude, like, the acting in this movie is terrible, so we don't see him, like, actually getting that upset about his daughter's death. We don't see, like, an element of temptation, etc. It just happens. So, like, the central premise of this movie, A, isn't really explored because the pets, I don't get what the pet cemetery has to do with the Wendigo. The Wendigo is never even, like, mentioned again. So, like, does the Wendigo want them to revive people? Is that how it comes into this world? Is it even, like, a thing? I don't know. It's not really established. Okay, so we don't get that. That's okay. Horror movies can work when, like, the main thing isn't explained. I've complained about this in the past. So why does Judd tell him about it? Like, because a cat died. Really? That's the best they could come up with? They couldn't come up with something better than that? Like I said, I thought he was working for the Wendigo. I thought it was going to be like the twist was that he was the main villain. Because otherwise it was just so inexplicable. But no, and then, like, he resurrects his daughter after showing no grief whatsoever. And then the film just kind of ends. There's no real, like, conclusion. It just stops. So, Pet Sematary sucked. It was poorly made, poorly produced. It felt like an incomplete movie that, like, was just rushed out on a legal pad. They didn't edit it. Then again, maybe just the source material sucked. I don't know. I don't get if, like, the Stephen King thing is people just want to justify how long it took them to read his shitty books. Maybe his books are, like, the greatest literature ever. I for one, couldn't sit through one of them. I've read very long books in the past. Like, I read Now the Unknown Story, and I really enjoyed that. I read, like, 4.5 of the Game of Thrones books, but I read Lord of the Rings, but I can't read Stephen King. I just can't. As much as I dislike Tolkien as a writer, and I know I'm going to get hate for this, Stephen King is worse. Stephen King is much, much worse. Anyways, guys, that's all I have to say. Don't watch this movie. We'll talk to you guys later.